Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. I'm your host for today, and today we're just going to be talking about this massive week of college basketball that has already happened, along with the massive games coming up for this weekend. So the outline today is going to be talking about the weekday results, highlighting some player performances, talking about some of the effects that it might have on some of these games, as you can see on the graphic here, the YouTube thumbnail. We had a bunch of huge, just top 15 matchups. We're going to dive into all those. We're going to try and keep it brief so we can get into the weekend slate because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all have great games. I'm going to be talking about some betting advice along the way for those games. And then after all that, you'll have to stick around to the end for the ultimate best bets for the entire weekend. So before we dive into that, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We're coming to you twice a week on YouTube and on Spotify and on Apple. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's, where we are heavily involved in the college basketball community. Love communicating with everyone on there and such. So much fun. So, follow along, whether you like Instagram, TikTok, or just YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Be sure to follow along. All right, let's dive right into the games. Let's go all the way back to Monday. We're not going to talk about these games a ton because we're recording this Friday, November 14th, about 11 o'clock. So this was a while ago. But we should just mention number 16, Iowa State did beat Mississippi State pretty badly, 96-80. Tamin Lipsey was great in this one, 25.6 assists. He was awesome. Josh Hubbard was good for Mississippi State, 25 points, 4 of 10 for 3. However, it seems like Mississippi State only has Josh Hubbard this year, quite frankly, while Tamin Lipsey has a nice, group around him with Milan Momcilovic and, Josh Jefferson with others. Iowa State going to be, looking like a top 3, top 4 seed. Come March Madness yet again, Mississippi State should be firmly on the bubble. Santa Clara did go to Xavier and take them down 87-68. Xavier is not good. They are in a complete rebuild year. Maybe next year, Richard Pitino, he's going to be fine, but it seems they're lacking NIL resources. Santa Clara is a pretty good basketball team as well. And then UConn destroyed Columbia and Kent State beat UNC Wilmington. Not a ton to talk about there. Let's talk about Tuesday, though, because this was the big day. Let's start with one of the biggest rivalries in all of college basketball, where number 12 Louisville announced its presence as back towards the top of the college basketball world with a 96-88 victory over number 9 Kentucky. This was a great game from start to finish, highly entertaining. The line started at like -2.5, I believe, for Louisville, ended up at -6.5 for Louisville, and they did end up covering in, kind of a nail biter for some of the Louisville bettors there and Kentucky bettors, unfortunately, on the wrong side of it. But Mikel Brown Jr. announced his presence, 29 points, 8 of 16 from the field. The duo of him and Ryan Conwell adding 24 points with being 4 of 10 from 3. So, we were worried, or some people were worried about them in the exhibition game because they just didn't shoot it well against Kansas. They're going to shoot the ball well, especially on their home court. This team can beat anyone in the country, and they just, went out and beat Kentucky. It was a fun game from start to finish. 2 really good basketball teams in my mind. I don't even think that's, anywhere near a hot take. Both teams are really good. Both teams have Final Four aspirations, and it was just good to see Louisville and Kentucky kind of matter again. It was a highlight game on a Tuesday where there's no football. Everyone's watching this. Not YouTube TV customers, I guess, but everyone's watching it. It was good to have this, on the main stage and watch, Louisville perform and Kentucky also perform well. Like, this was a good basketball team. Either team can make a deep run. For Kentucky, Denzel Aberdeen led the charge with 26 points. He shot 20 times, which is kind of rare, but he was 10 of 20, had a good game for Kentucky, but it was just Louisville kind of controlling the game the entire way through. All right, let's pull up the rest of Tuesday's results. As you can see, we had a lot of them. Tuesday was absolutely loaded. Let's talk about number 11, Texas Tech, and number 14, Illinois, where Illinois got the job done 81-77. Illinois was leading much bigger at half. I believe it was, 13 at half? Ended up winning the game by 4. 2 really good teams as well. I left with Kentucky, Louisville, Texas Tech, and Illinois. I think these are all Final Four contenders. These are all really good basketball teams. For Illinois, Andre Stojakovic, the transfer, had a fantastic game, kind of his breakout game here. 23 points, 11 of 16 from the field. Also had 3 steals, was a highly productive player in this game. Illinois is super fun to watch with these, European guards, and Kylan Boswell was also really good in this game, but Illinois is a tremendous watch, as is Texas Tech. I didn't leave feeling any different from Texas Tech, but let's just mention JT Toppin's game. My goodness, this is one of the best games I can remember in a loss in a long time. 35 points, 11 rebounds, 17 of 25 from the field, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Unbelievable. He looks like Braden Smith will have an argument, but it looks like it's him and Braden Smith as your 2 best players in college basketball. I know the freshmen are making a lot of headlines, but yeah, Toppin and Smith seem to be, just showing why, returning to your program and that little bit of just what is known with Toppin and McCaslin and with Smith and Painter, we'll get into here in a little bit, but they look great. But the story here is Illinois pulling off a huge win. Illinois looks like, I would be surprised if this team isn't maybe the second best team in the Big Ten right now, either them and Purdue. If you want to put them one, I'm going to hear you out, but we're going to talk about Purdue here in a little bit. They look awesome as well. I think it's Illinois and Purdue because we're going to talk about Michigan here in a second. I think Michigan is very good. I think UCLA is very good. Michigan State looks the part. I'm sure there's someone else I'm missing because there's a ton of good teams in the Big Ten. But yeah, to me, it looks like it's Illinois and Purdue. They both look awesome. All right, next let's talk about number 23 Creighton and number 19 Gonzaga, where Gonzaga put a beating on them. 92-63, just an absolutely dominant performance. Graham Ike was awesome. 20 points, 10 rebounds, 8 of 10 from the field, and 4 of 4 from 3. How about Graham Ike knocking down some threes? This result was, obviously a 27-point victory in a game where they were projected to win by 11, I believe, at KenPom. Gonzaga actually jumped all the way up to number 2 at KenPom after this game. They've now fallen down to 3 because Houston retook the lead as the top team at KenPom. It went Duke and then Gonzaga and then I believe Houston, and now still top 3 at KenPom. Can Gonzaga be really underrated? Potentially. This team is really good. They seem to have all the pieces. Creighton, not so much. I know Creighton fans are very worried right now, and quite frankly, I was a little worried coming into the season, but I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be a tournament team. They might be, a little closer to the bubble than you expect Greg McDermott and Creighton to be. But to me, if I had to pick, I would say they're in as like an 8 through 10 seed, quite frankly. I think they'll be fine. But to me, this said more about Gonzaga and Graham Ike and kind of, showing that they're back and could be fighting for, they got a gauntlet coming up. This team could be a 1 seed, could be a 2 seed. They have the non-con schedule to do it. Wake Forest and Michigan led off the night. Michigan, the number 6 team in the country. This was a fantastic game. This game started early, so it was kind of a standalone game for a while here. Michigan ended up outlasting them 85-84 in overtime. The story was Ade Mara, awesome in this one, 18 points, 13 rebounds. His kind of breakout game. Yaxel Wendeborg just kind of fit in this game, wasn't great. Elliot Cadeau did have a very good game in this one. Points and rebounds did really well. I can't remember the exact number because I put the Ade Mara stat on here because he was awesome in this matchup. But Wake Forest, how about them showing some heart? This game wasn't played at Michigan. It was in Detroit. But Wake Forest has a lot of, Steve Forbes did a good job. This was kind of one of them where it's like, oh, they kind of let it slip away. They had the ball, I think they had maybe a 3-second differential from the game clock and the shot clock at the end of the game. So they sort of had the last opportunity and it just looked like a lot of dribbling. It just didn't look very good. And then Michigan had kind of a debacle of a inbounds play. But anyways, it got to overtime in Wake Forest. This would have been just a huge one to just kind of show, hey, we should be in the tournament conversation. I came in a little low on Wake Forest. This gave me some optimism about them. We'll see what they can do in the ACC. The ACC has performed pretty well. Speaking of the ACC, let's move on to a rivalry game where Florida is in the SEC, but took on rival Florida State in the ACC, where Florida escaped them 78-66. Florida State led in the second half in this game. This is Luke Lauk's first game against Florida. I think if you're a Florida State fan, you should be optimistic about this result, but Florida did end up, holding on to the win. Thomas Houck had 20 points, 13 rebounds. Ruben Chinyelu had 10 points, 16 rebounds. The big concern for Florida coming into the season was the guard play. As it should have been. You lose some awesome guards. You lose 3 NBA draft picks with Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and Elijah Martin, who we are finding out was so important to this team defensively, which I think he just kind of flew underrated all season long last year because you had Walter Clayton and Will Richard. But Elijah Martin was also awesome, and you also lose Denzel Aberdeen, who just had a big game against Louisville, who we just talked about. But Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan have not been the part this year. So far this year, Boogie Flan's been better than Xavier Lee. They were a combined 3 of 17 from 3 in this game. This was at Florida. This wasn't a neutral site game. This game was at Florida. They're struggling to shoot it from 3. And just to go along with it, with Xavier Lee on the season, 26.8% from the field right now. Now, it's a small sample size. He's only shooting 20.7% from 3 right now. Xavier Lee has not translated up as well as as well as, Florida fans had hoped, as well as Todd Golden had hoped. Give him time. I think he'll be all right. Those numbers are obviously going to go up a little bit, but it hasn't been a very good start. And if they would have lost this game, it could have been kind of, I believe, that would have put them to 1-2 on the season. Then it would have been really raising some concerns. So luckily they escaped this game, but says a lot about Florida State, and Luke Laux could be, a sneaky little team in the ACC. But Florida, yeah, they got to get some guard play going somewhere. We'll see where it's going to come from. Xavier Lee's got to step up, or Boogie Fland's kind of got to be, a real go-to guy. All right, let's kind of just go through the rest of these because there wasn't really anything too notable. Let's not skip Delaware, BYU, where the only reason this is really on here because Delaware led by 3 at the half against BYU. BYU ended up winning the game comfortably by 17, but Delaware did lead by 3. Duke went to Army, really cool game on Veterans Day, and just gave it to them. But the Army student section, there were a lot of videos of them going viral. It was a cool event for Duke to, John Shire to take his players to Army and play a true road game against a mid-major, and it's on Veterans Day. It was pretty cool, but Duke gets the win, 114-59. North Carolina beats Radford, no surprise. Kansas beats Texas A&M Corpus Christi, no surprise. Just put these two on here because of the notable injuries with North Carolina losing Seth Trimble. This was their first game without him. They win, and then Kansas, Darren Peterson did not play in this one. I think it was just like a stomach bug issue from what I heard, so just kind of a precautionary. I wouldn't be too worried about it. Might even be better for Kansas just to, make these other non-Darren Peterson players actually do something. So probably, maybe a positive in disguise there. A couple other real good games. Memphis went to Ole Miss, only lost by 6, 83-77. Memphis did cover in this game. So if you're into that, that's kind of important, but just kind of, a solid game all around. Kind of looks like 2 tournament teams to me. And, Memphis looks like the team to beat right now in the American, which I came in believing USF was going to be they were my pick to win the American, but Memphis has looked better than I expected. So credit to Penny Hardaway there. I think Ole Miss is still underrated under Chris Beard. I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. They're going to be fine. Cincinnati wins at home against Dayton, and, kind of a mini sort of rivalry game, mini sort of crosstown shootout. Dayton and Cincinnati just a little under an hour away from each other, but Cincinnati gets the job done, off to a good start this season. Dayton, we'll see what they can be. St. Mary's beats Ohio. Ohio State beats App State, and what was our best bet game for our new challenge that we started. And then, I had something going on, so I didn't catch like the first, 12 minutes of the game. And when I turned it on, it was like 24-12 Appalachian State with like 8 minutes left. Like, what are we doing, Ohio State? The one time I bet on you, you decide to, score 12 points in like 12 minutes against an App State team. Like, really? But anyways, it was ugly. So Jake Diebler's on my not so happy list, but they still win the game. Didn't even end up covering, ended up choking the cover late in the game for those who had Ohio State. So you can be mad at Jake Diebler with me, but Ohio State gets the win. UNLV loses at home. Josh Pastner not off to a good start at all. Montana goes there, beats them 102-93. How about Money Williams at Montana? Great player to kind of keep an eye on. So we've talked up the ACC. Let's talk down on the ACC right here. Central Connecticut State goes to Boston College and beats them 60-59. Boston College, oh my goodness. Them and Georgia Tech are just awful. They are just awful this year. I feel like there's one more team there's so many teams in the ACC. Who's the other one who's supposed to be at the bottom? I don't know. Boston College and Georgia Tech are just awful. And then DePaul loses at home to Buffalo. I don't really think Buffalo's that great this season either. So this was kind of an eye-opening result. Buffalo was in a game with Green Bay. Yeah, that's a Doug Gottlieb coach team that Buffalo was in a game with. And then they go to DePaul and beat them. So kind of weird result there. SMU beats Murray State. Clemson beats Morehead State. So a couple other, notable ACC wins. All right, let's move on to Wednesday where nothing real exciting happened. We'll go through this one quickly. Missouri did beat Minnesota badly, 83-60. Houston, beat up on Oakland as kind of expected. Indiana pulled up a victory against Milwaukee. Indiana's so fun to watch. Virginia Tech still looks great. Wins against St. Joe's. Oregon State with a weird finish in the game where North Texas player called a timeout, pulled a Chris Webber when they didn't have a timeout. Oregon State wins the game 66-64. North Carolina State looks great against UNC Greensboro. Oregon beats South Dakota State. UT Martin, it's kind of a team of note. They're kind of the mid-major team that's getting a lot of hype right now, and they should be. You go to Bradley, pick up a win. UT Martin looks really good. They've picked up some good wins early in the year. Marquette beats Arkansas Little Rock 89-49, blowout there. Marquette recovers after that bad loss to Indiana. And then Nevada escapes in overtime against SIU 86-81. Keep that Nevada game in mind because they're going to be on our best bets segment. We're going to be betting against them here in a little bit. All right, let's move on to Thursday, where this was, maybe one of the biggest games of the entire non-conference slate. Number 2, Purdue, true road game at number 8, Alabama. Purdue announced their presence 87-80. They get the victory at Alabama. Really good basketball game here. The stars showed up. Braden Smith was awesome. Absolutely awesome. 29 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 of 10 from 3 was making everything. This was Trey Kaufman-Wren's first game he played in this season. 19 points, 15 rebounds, 9 of 16 from the field. He was the difference maker in the first half. Oscar Clough only had 9 points, 11 rebounds, but his impact, if you watch the game, was real because Purdue just dominated inside, as we kind of should have expected, I guess, just because Alabama's front court is iffy this year. Taylor Bowen was out like chucking, I don't know how many threes he shot. I should have looked, but it was 3 or 4 plus, which shouldn't be happening. I know he made one, I think, but yeah, shouldn't really be happening. They didn't really announce a post presence, and Purdue did. Purdue just looked bigger. Alabama's so fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but Purdue obviously they won the game, just looked like a more complete basketball team, which is no surprise coming into the season being ranked number 1 compared to what was Alabama, 15-ish or so. So Alabama's still really good. I think they can get a lot better as long as they get a little bit more size down low. Noah Williamson also played significant minutes for Alabama as kind of a bigger body, but he also just kind of stands out by the 3-point line. They really just had no post presence in this game, but Purdue just looked like just a little bit of a more complete basketball team. Alabama, still really high on you. LeBaron Philon did not have a great one. Aiden Holloway did. 21 points, 5 of 9 from 3. Aiden Holloway's quickly becoming one of my favorite players to watch too. Every time he shoots it, you just expect it to go in. LeBaron Philon wasn't awesome in this game. I believe he was 5 of 14 from the field. So he kind of that's another just credit to Braden Smith kind of shutting down, LeBaron Philon, Alabama's best player in this one. It was a good, entertaining basketball game. The Alabama fans showed up, I think, highly of both teams, once we get into to conference play. I think both teams are going to be completely fine. So Braden Smith, JT Toppin, my goodness, this might be a great player of the year race. I mean, maybe Cam Boozer or Darren Peterson can get in that conversation as well. But it looks like it's Braden Smith and JT Toppin, which I kind of love to see, just returning players be at the top of the sport yet again. Also on Thursday, Pitt went to West Virginia and got drilled 71-49. I watched a lot of this game because this was I watched the first half of this game, I should say. And then, when there was a commercial for Purdue, Alabama, I'd switch to it. Pitt looks awful. My goodness, Pitt fans got to be frustrated. They look awful because I don't think West Virginia is too awesome. I like Ross Hodge a lot, and I think he's a much better coach than Jeff Capel, and it kind of showed in this one. Pitt looked awful in this game. I don't know, too much about this Pitt team because I don't think they're going to be very good this year. So kind of just wanted to get a feel of them, and they do not look good. Kansas State held off Cal 99-96. They led by 21 at the half, and then Cal fought all the way back. So Kansas State -6.5 bettors. I'm sorry. That's a tough one. And then Wichita State beat Loyola Chicago 95-74. Loyola Chicago looks bad. My goodness, they were my sleeper coming into the year. I thought this team was going to be good. Had good mojo at the end of last season. Also had has some pieces coming back. I thought this team was talented. Yeah, they don't look very good. Drew Valentine hasn't done too awesome of a job there. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about all the, the games to know while talking some betting previews, some lines that I like, some lines that I don't like, and then we will get into our best bets. But first, we're going to take a quick break here. So once we're back on the other side of the ad, we'll be ready to go. Growing game, yet it is hard to find affordable golf instruction. For example, let's take a look at this man's swing. Pulling the club head a little bit inside his line instead of working his hands up the plane is causing a little bit too much turn at the top. You can see his club shaft pointing way to the right, which forces that club to come in steeper than it should, hands a little too far away from the body instead of being in the slot, which will force a little bit of early extension here to get the club path back on target. For just $10, you can get a swing review just like this Follow Brandon Jadich Golf and send a DM that says Bracket Science for just a $10 swing review. It's all you need. You don't need to spend $100 on a lesson. Just get your swing review and fix it yourself. Alrighty, hopefully that ad didn't, mess up too much there, as I'm trying to finally monetize this as well as I should, but yeah, we're still learning the ins and outs, so hopefully that didn't pause for too long. Having a little bit of technical difficulties over here. But anyways, let's get back into the games. On Friday, High Point at 7:30 plays at UAB. You might wonder, why is this game on the list? Why is this mid-major game? If High Point wins this game, they might go undefeated this season. High Point is, what are they? I think they're 3-0 on the season. They were actually, this was the only game in the entire slate that they were projected to lose. They've now flipped it. They're projected by, this is according to KenPom, they're projected to win by 1 at KenPom. Betting line's now at 2.5. Other than that, they're projected to win every single game the rest of the season. That's just kind of showing what the Big South is this year. It should be a little bit weaker. Not a bunch of competition. Maybe Winthrop could get them. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know who else. Longwood, UNC Asheville is always tough. But yeah, if they win this game, there's a real chance that that High Point could go undefeated. I do have a good bet for this game. It's not on my best bets, so you'll have to wait to the end for the best bets. But I do have a good bet. I do like the under in this game. It's at 168.5. That feels like too many points. High Point can really score the ball, but UAB is going to know that they have to shut down this High Point offense. And yeah, that's 85, 84 points a team. I don't think it's going to get that high. I don't really have a particular, I think 2.5 sounds about right for High Point. Don't have a particular lean, but I do like under 168.5 in that game. At 8 o'clock on FS1, Xavier goes to Iowa. Iowa favored by 16.5 in that game. We talked about how, Xavier, not very good this year. Iowa, going to be good this year. Bennett Sturts is must-see TV. Talked about it on our last show. If you are just a fan of just pretty-looking jump shots, Bennett Sturts is the guy for you. One, maybe the best-looking jump shot in all of college basketball. It is so pretty, such beautiful rotation. It looks really, really good. Also at 8 o'clock, I don't have a particular bet for that game, by the way. Also at 8 o'clock on ESPN Plus, UCF versus Texas A&M. A&M favored by 11.5 in that game. I'm not too high on either of these teams. Both teams have scored a lot throughout the the first couple games, but I do like the under in this game. I like under 172.5. I mean, that's 86 a team. I think it's going to be a closer game than we might expect. 11.5 isn't particularly a blowout. It's not favored by 16.5 plus. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, and I think both teams are going to look just a little bit sharper with they know that we don't need a complete just shootout for both of these teams. Now, we know Bucky loves to play fast. Will he do it against a UCF team? I'm not sure. KenPom's got it at 165, so it's all the way up at 172. I like more of the 165 route. UCF has scored a lot, but a lot of their garbage time, or a lot of their points against the game against Vanderbilt, where they lost 105-93, was in garbage time. Like, they didn't do that great. They scored 82 only against Hofstra. So against the Texas A&M defense, that actually should be solid. I think I do think it's going to be sort of, it's going to be a 75 to 79 point for maybe the winner in this game. I don't want to say 79-75 for the score, but I think it's going to be around that total, maybe 79-70, something like that, maybe 84-73, something like that, as long as we stay under 172, because that's a ton of points. UCF did just play at Oklahoma State, only scored 63 points in that game. I don't think either team is great, like I said, but I do like under 172.5 in that one. Northwestern goes to DePaul. Battle of Chicago, 8:30 on True TV, random True TV game. Northwestern favored by 5.5 in this game. I have no thoughts for this game. I don't really know how good how good DePaul is going to be, but yeah, should be a fun matchup. At 9 o'clock on ESPN2, number 6 Michigan goes to TCU. Michigan escaped disaster. TCU lost a rough one early in the season against New Orleans. I also have no thoughts about this game. Just going to tune in and see what it looks like. Should be a fun matchup. We'll see if TCU can kind of get back on track, or if Michigan can also kind of get back on track after a scare against Wake Forest. At 9 o'clock on the SEC network, Georgia Tech goes to Georgia. Rivalry game. Georgia favored by 15.5. yes, seems like a lot of points for a rivalry game. I like Georgia minus 15.5 in this game. I think Georgia Tech is awful. I'm sorry, Georgia Tech fans. I think they are awful. Georgia Tech and Boston College, like we just talked about, I think these teams have a real chance of maybe their only wins in the ACC coming against each other. Now, there's some other bad teams in the ACC. There's, Cal looked all right, I guess, against Kansas State, but there's some other, not so talented teams in the ACC. However, I think Georgia Tech and Boston College are on a tier of their own, and Georgia scores the ball like crazy. They are climbing at KenPom like crazy. Georgia is, they're one of the best offenses in the entire country. So if you like the over, okay, I'm a little bit worried about it. Just with, I don't know. I don't love the over, but Georgia in their 3 games this season have won 104-59, 94-29, and 120-81. Now, these are not against good teams, but they can score the ball. And Georgia Tech, to me, is not a good team. I think they cover 15.5 in this game. Next up, 9 o'clock, ESPN Plus. Providence takes on Colorado. This game is being played at Colorado, so it's played at altitude. However, I do like Providence to cover 1 in this game as +1. I think Providence is just much better. Providence screwed me last week against Virginia Tech. However, Virginia Tech's better than Colorado. I think Providence will kind of rebound coming off of a loss, and I think they win the game straight up against Colorado. Obviously, if it's +1, I think they're going to get the job done here. KenPom does have Providence -1, but I think being at altitude, that would be the only real scare there. The game of the night is Arizona, number 5 team in the country, taking on number 15 UCLA in Inglewood, California. This game's at 10 o'clock, unfortunately, for East Coast guys. For, this is the best game of the night. This game's on Peacock. Arizona favored by 3.5. I didn't even make a little banner thing for it, but I kind of lean UCLA +3.5. I think it's kind of a coin flip game, in my opinion. It's a neutral venue game, but it leans more towards UCLA, obviously being in Inglewood. But I'd lean UCLA, but I'm not real confident in it because Arizona is really good, and Arizona's got obviously a massive front court. UCLA has front court issues. This is going to be Xavier Booker's first real test going up against a real front court. So we'll see what him and Tyler Bilodeau can do against Mo Krivas, Koa Pete, and Toby Owaka. So that's a little bit of my concern. But however, I think it's kind of a coin flip game. So if you're going to give me 3.5 points for UCLA, I'd probably take it. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun watch. I just enjoy watching this game. I'm not going to bet it. 10 o'clock on ESPN Plus. St. Mary's hosting North Texas. St. Mary's favored by 13.5. Randy Bennett is awesome. I love Randy Bennett. My goodness. Not a really talented roster as we thought coming into the season, and they just win and are favored over good mid-majors like North Texas by 13.5. They're just awesome, an awesome program. 11 o'clock on ESPN Plus, rivalry game, Washington at Washington State. Washington favored by 8.5. Don't have a particular lean. 11 o'clock on ESPN2, Gonzaga at Arizona State. We'll see what Bobby Hurley can do. Gonzaga favored by 14.5 on the road. My goodness, Arizona State giving up 14.5 points to Gonzaga at home. Rough stuff for Bobby Hurley and company. All right, let's move on to Saturday's games to watch. Starting at noon, fun one, Clemson taking on Georgetown. This game will be played at Georgetown. However, KenPom, these are the Saturday and Sunday games will be KenPom lines because the betting lines obviously aren't out yet. Clemson favored by 4 at Georgetown. I do not expect this to be the line, quite frankly, because Clemson's number 20 at KenPom right now, kind of flying under the radar a little bit. Georgetown 76. If I had to pick who is actually better, sorry, Clemson fans, I love Brad Brownell, but I would probably say Georgetown. So I believe this line will end up at it will probably come out as like Georgetown -1.5. And yeah, I like Georgetown money line in this game against Clemson. And another bet I do also like in this one. So, getting the juices flowing at noon on Peacock. I like the under 146 in this game. Georgetown's got one of the best defenses in the country, and Clemson doesn't have a particularly awesome offense. I expect this to be kind of an ugly basketball game of give me 65-60. Georgetown wins this game. I think it's going to be a fun one at 12 o'clock on Peacock. And then following that at 2 o'clock on Peacock, 2 teams that have been kind of disappointing to start the season. Maryland at Marquette. The Buzz Bowl, Buzz Williams, formerly coach at Marquette, and obviously A&M, now at Maryland. This game will be played at Marquette, and Marquette is favored by 4 in this game, and I think Marquette gets them by more than 4. Now, I know maybe I'm just a little too optimistic about Marquette. I kind of liked them against Indiana in the last game, but Indiana is also better than we thought, and Marquette just came out flat. think it's kind of a rebound game here because I think Maryland's going to be a little worse than I initially anticipated. But will they be able to stop Pharrell Payne? I'm not sure. It's going to be a lot of fun. I lean Marquette -4, but it's not like my favorite bet ever. It won't be on the best bets for that we're going to show here in a little bit. Butler at SMU. SMU under Andy Enfield, also kind of flying under the radar. Good test here. Butler's look solid as well. 2 o'clock on the CW, random CW game. SMU favored by 5 in that one. I don't have a particular lean. I'm just curious to watch both of these two teams play because I'm not 100% sure what to think about either of them right now. We'll get a better feel after this game. Now, one of the best non-conference, maybe the best non-conference game of the entire season, number 3 UConn and number 7 BYU. Now, I'm not going to say it's the best because it's at a neutral court. It's in Boston, which is AJ DeBance's hometown. So he's going back to Boston, and UConn is favored by 5 in this one. UConn on the main stage, AJ DeBance on the main stage, 7 o'clock on Fox. Sign me up for that. I do have a lean, and it's just a personal thing. I don't have any real reason for it. I've been in on UConn. They're my national championship pick for people who know, and I'm a little bit lower on BYU. So that's just why I'm going to lean UConn -5 in this game. I think BYU still got some things to figure out. I think UConn's pretty much got it figured out right now. I'm going to take UConn -5 in that one. Oklahoma at Nebraska. How about that? That's a fun matchup. Actually, it's not at Nebraska. This will be, I believe, at the Pentagon. Yes, it'll be at the Pentagon. So, heavily favors Nebraska, but Nebraska favored by 2 in this one. This is at 7 on the Big Ten Network. I don't have a particular lean in this one. I like both teams, being somewhere around the bubble, but, Nebraska's 46th at KenPom, Oklahoma's 61st. I think that's a little low for Oklahoma, and this is based off KenPom lines. I'm staying away from it. I think it's just going to be a fun game to watch. Also at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus, Nevada at Santa Clara. Santa Clara, better than you think. I bet them against Xavier, and they dominated. Now, I don't think Xavier's very good. However, we talked about it. Nevada, going back to them, I don't think Nevada's very good at all this year, quite frankly. I think it's just going to be a down year for the Mountain West, quite frankly, outside of, Utah State and San Diego State. Maybe, Grand Canyon can sneak up there, which we'll talk about next. But Nevada, I'm not there yet. And I think Santa Clara is sneaky really good. I'm going to take Santa Clara -5 in this game. I think that they win this game. At 8 o'clock on ESPN Plus, Grand Canyon at St. Louis. Watch Robbie Avila. Robbie Avila is still at St. Louis. They might be the best team in the A-10. The A-10 is really fun this year. St. Louis favored by 8. That sounds about right. Staying away from this game. And then at 9 o'clock, a rivalry game. New Mexico at New Mexico State. Eric Olin's first game at New Mexico State. Eric Olin is a winner. And New Mexico is a little bit better than I expected them to start the season. And I don't think New Mexico State's great. So I'm going to take New Mexico money line in this game. It's -2. If it ends up like 3.5, I don't really love it. But if it's -1.5, I'd probably take New Mexico. I think New Mexico wins the game because Eric Olin is just a winner. Some other games on Saturday that I also like that aren't going to be, great games to, for the normal college basketball fan. They're kind of under the radar games. James Madison -2 versus LIU. I think James Madison's going to get stuff figured out because they have so much talent. For those who know, I've been in on James Madison. They haven't been good. James Madison, Loyola Chicago, my 2 most disappointing teams that I've mid-major wise that I really like coming into the season. The Miami of Ohio -8 versus Air Force. Speaking of Mountain West, Air Force is the worst team in the Mountain West. They're one of the worst teams in the country, unfortunately. I support the troops, but yeah, not a very good team this year. And Miami of Ohio can really score the ball. And then Minnesota -21 versus Green Bay. Minnesota's been beating up badly on mid-major teams. In fact, credit to Will Warren over at Basket Under Review. He gave a stat that Minnesota was top 10 in the country. When you take out preseason bias, which you can do it, Bart Torvik. I didn't do it. Will Warren did it. Minnesota was top 10 in the country going into that game against Missouri where they got beat up on. But that kind of shows just how well they are against mid-majors. And my probably least favorite, sorry, Green Bay fans, my least favorite mid-major team is Green Bay because I think the whole Doug Gottlieb hire is just an absolute joke. And -21, I don't think that's enough. I'm going to take Minnesota -21 in that game. And then on Sunday, we have some fun games. Notre Dame at Ohio State. I believe it's at Ohio State. Let me double check here. Yes, at Ohio State, 12:30 on FS1. I might go to this game, by the way, just for the fun of it, so I can get back for Houston Auburn. Might go to it. Notre Dame, an underdog by 8 points at Ohio State. Never going to bet an Ohio State game again because they killed me last time. So we're done with Ohio State, but should be a fun matchup here. 2 teams fighting to be in the NCAA tournament at 3 o'clock on ESPN. Number 1 Houston, now number 1 in the country, goes to number 22 Auburn. It's in Birmingham. It's not at Auburn, but it is, it's that last year the game was played in Houston, but not at Houston. Now it's in Alabama, but not at Auburn. So Fun game here. Houston's favored by 5. If it gets down to 2.5, 3.5, I love Houston in it. I'm probably just going to take Houston money line, depending on what the line is. If it's under -200 or -200 even, I will probably be taking Houston because I don't think that highly of Auburn. And Houston just kind of flying under the radar. They saw Purdue just win a huge game at Alabama, obviously. So, playing Alabama's rivals, I think Houston wants to do the same thing and will be motivated. I think Houston wins the game. Not that high on Auburn. I think Houston just frustrates the crap out of kind of, not that disciplined of an Auburn team, in my opinion. Then UNLV goes to Memphis, 5 o'clock on ESPN, the Josh Pastner Bowl, as we'll call it. Memphis favored by 12. UNLV looks rough. Memphis looks better than expected. 5 o'clock ESPN Plus. How far has Loyola Chicago fallen? Yes, they're a 6-point underdog at home against Colorado State team, who a lot of people don't even know who their coach is. It is Ali Farokhmanesh, but Colorado State favored by 6 in that one. 5:30 on the Big Ten Network, Incarnate Wood at Indiana. Indiana favored by 23. That line will get up to about 30 probably. If it's 23, take Indiana -23. I didn't even put a graphic for it because it's going to be a lot higher than that. 7:30 on the Big Ten Network, Akron, who is a really, really fun mid-major to kind of keep an eye on. Akron plays at number 2, Purdue. Purdue only favored by 16, so that should kind of tell you how good this Akron team is. Also, could it be a little bit of a hangover game for Purdue after that huge win? We'll see, but Akron's not a team you can take lightly. They are really good. Then 8:30, a rivalry game, Miami plays at number 10, Florida. Florida favored by 9 in that one. I don't have a particular lean. That sounds about right. Just excited to see what Jai Lucas's team can do. All right, let's pull up the best bets for the week. Only 5 of them, or for the weekend, excuse me. Only 5 of them. Starting on Friday, Texas A&M versus UCF under 172.5. Providence plus 1.5 versus Colorado. Saturday, Georgetown money line versus Clemson. And then we're going to go with James Madison -2 versus LIU. And then on Sunday, Houston money line versus Auburn. I'm confident that Houston gets the win in that one. These will be the best bets for the weekend. As always, bet responsibly. I did a show, a new series that got, got a lot of views, of course, when it was a losing bet where I was trying to turn $10 into $1,500 and it lost. So always bet responsibly. I say I want to win at about a 66% rate. So if I have a better feeling than 66%, I will put it on the weekend best bets. So that's my goal. So that should tell you, they say betting is anywhere from 47 to 53% on the money line. And it's obviously minus money. So it's not a way to be profitable. So just always like to send out a little disclaimer. All right, that's going to do it for the show today. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. Before heading out of here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Let me know your games you're watching this upcoming weekend. It's a big weekend. Let me know your takeaways from the big games. Who's the best team in the country? Let me know. Purdue, Arizona, Houston, anyone you might think. I'm always curious to hear what the particular fan bases think. So everyone enjoy the ball, enjoy the good weekend of hoops, and we'll see you later.